Okay, everyone, it's about time and let's start. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to all of you. Uh, Before we begin and proceed with the session, I would just like to tell you how I was introduced to this particular topic. So a couple of years back, I was reviewing one of my colleagues' merge request, and in the merge request, I found certain code that I was wondering what this code is about. And after reading the code, I asked my colleague what have you written over here, and then I saw the documentation for this topic. And yeah, that's how I got introduced to this particular topic. uh, so and today we'll be focusing on the basics of what composer scripting is. We'll be watching a demo. We'll be covering up some basics, some theory around what this particular topic or the API you can say provides. So let's begin. So before we jump into the topic, I'd like to introduce myself. So I am Kunal Kursija. I am based out of Mumbai, and I have been working with Drupal since last 9 years, and presently working at Accelerant as a Drupal engineer. After this session or anytime, if you want to say hello to me, you can reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. And if you want to check what kind of work I have been doing with Drupal, you can go to my Drupal.org profile. So yeah, let's begin now. Let's talk about what a script is in terms of Composer. Uh, in terms of Composer, script is nothing but a PHP callback or a method that contains any amount of functionality or any type of functionality, or it could be also some CLI commands doing certain automation task or certain, you know, executing certain type of functionality. So as simple as that, it is a piece of code or a PHP callback, or it could be a CLI command as well. That's it. That is a script. Now, in terms of Composer, uh, these scripts are basically placed at the root level of your composer.json. Uh, I don't know. I mean, if you have seen this, but this is how scripts look like. We'll be seeing the live composer.json of one of the project that we have created today for this particular demo, and this is just a screenshot of how that section looks. It is basically in scripts array. It contains so scripts in the key value format, where these key 1, key 2 are your scripts, and value are basically, they could be any PHP scripts, they could be any bash scripts, they could be any composer commands, drush commands, etc. So that's what these values represent in this section. We'll get to know about what they are in detail when we move to the next part of this session during our demo. Moving on, let's talk about composer events. Uh, Whenever anyone offers, as developers, when you execute any commands from the CLI, let's say composer install, composer update, or composer require any package, uh, composer fire different events during the execution of these commands, which allows other packages to basically hook into composer and perform certain automation task. Now this is a pretty theoretical definition, but we'll be seeing events in action when we proceed to our demo. uh, if I have to add more to this, then I'll say you can treat these events as Symfony events, where Symfony or Drupal fires various types of events during, um, let's say, any functionalities. For example, route subscriber. Whenever any route is being called, Drupal allows us, or as in developers, it allows us to hook into the routing API, and subscribe to the route subscriber class and alter the event that is getting executed. So you can relate it to that part. Moving on. Now, as we said, like whenever any composer command is executed, composer fire different events based on the command you are executing. These commands or these events are basically categorized into four types. First one is command events, then installer events, package events, and plugin events. Command events are basically, when uh, you fire when you execute any type of composer command, like any command you execute, these commands will get fired. And later on, you have installer events. Now, when you install new packages, or when you run, let's say, composer install, or you run composer require, at that time, these installer commands get fired. Um, After that, we have package events. Package events are executed when you, let's say, install any new package, for example, or you update any existing package. So that's when these package events are fired. And plugin events are very generic. They are fired almost all the time. Like, let's say you execute any command. For example, for any event, these type of these events are fired. We'll see like what they are actually in the next part. So moving on. Now, when composer fires events, they are fired by this event dispatcher or event class, and it is present at this namespace. This is basically a base class that fires your events. As the events are fired, each event is passed an argument with them, which your scripts will basically take input from. So if composer is firing, let's say, command event, it will carry an argument with it, and the argument will be the type or the object of class event. Similarly, the same thing applies to these three event categories. Installer events will carry the argument of type installer event. Package events will have the argument of type package event, and plugin events will have the argument of type command event or free file download event. Moving on, let's see. This is the whole theory aspect of what the events are. So the next 4 slides are going to be very quick. They will basically define, or they'll basically introduce you to the type of events that are fired by composer, or the event names. Now, the first one, command events. You can see each bullet represents an event. For example, pre-install CMD. Now, this event is fired, before the install command is executed with a log file present. So let's say you say composer require drupal/devel on your CLI. You hit this command, composer will basically fire this particular event. And you can, as a developer, you can hook into this event and do necessary alterations based and you can execute any logic, any PHP script, or any command. So as you can see, there are many types of many events that composer fires depending on the command you are basically executing from your CLI. Next type, it is installer events. Now, this particular event is called as pre-operations execute, and it occurs basically before the install, upgrade, require, etc. operations. So whenever you hit those particular calls to whenever you execute composer install or upgrade, at that time, this event is fired. Moving on to package events. Now, these events are fired whenever you install or update new packages or existing packages. So at that point, package events are fired. Now, the last one, plugin events. Now, as I said, these are very common type of events that are fired almost like with every command that you execute from your CLI, that is every composer command. For example, composer type command. Let's say this occurs before any composer command is executed on the CLI. It provides you access to the input and output objects of the program. So yeah, these are fired almost like every time you execute any command. Okay. Now we'll be moving to the demo part. I know, I mean, this might have been a pretty boring bit to like listen to, but things will get interesting when you watch this demo now. So let me come out of the presentation. Now, this is a Drupal 9 site. Sorry, I forgot to install initiate PHP Storm. So give me a moment. Okay. Before the editor starts, I'll explain you like what kind of site I have created. So this is a Drupal 9 installation, and we won't be looking into the site much because we'll be playing around in the editor itself. And there are mostly no contributed modules installed on the site, and it is just a vanilla Drupal instance with no customizations whatsoever. Okay. Here we are. So I'll open, the repository is called as FLDC 2021, and let's talk about composer.json file directly. And let's pay attention to this particular section throughout our demo, which is scripts. Now I have created various scripts that I'm going to show you today. And I have placed every script that I have created inside the script directory, which is present in the root of this repository. And the folder is called as scripts. It contains composer scripts, PHP scripts, and a shell script as well. Let's talk about, let's say, post install CMD script first. Now, this script is executed, or this is basically, no, we are talking about events now first, sorry. So this is an event that is fired by Composer every time you install or you run Composer install, basically. I'll run Composer install right away, and I'll show you what happens with this script. I'm executing Composer install. Now, throughout this Composer workflow or Composer command lifecycle, I have hooked into various events, and each event is basically doing some task. Some classes are printing some custom messages, or some classes are doing some logic. The first one, it is a command event, and it is executing this particular function. So let's go to this particular class first. It is present in Composer command event.php. Now, first composer.json. If you can see, I have written the class over here, that is DrupalCamp Florida, Composer, and command events. This is basically the namespace of this particular class. And this is the function callback function that is getting called by our post install CMD event. What this function is doing is it is executing some piece of code, which is basically copy pasting our settings.php or app.settings.php that is present at site's default app settings.php and it is pasting as settings.php basically. So if you see the end section of this particular output, you will see that it says event post install CMD has been fired, which is getting printed from here. We are getting the event name from this argument. As I told you earlier, that whenever any command event is fired, it accepts or it brings in an argument of type event with it. And that's what that argument is getting catched by our script callback over here. And yeah, this is basically the logic that this script is executing. If you see, I have sites default settings.php over here. Let me delete this. Okay, the file is deleted. Let me run the Composer install again. Okay, Composer install is completed. And as you can see, settings.php has come up again. So this is basically, some automation work related to settings.php that I have achieved using the post install cmd event provided by Composer. Now we have this pre-operations executive. As we fired this event, as you can see, this message was printed over here when we executed Composer install. So it got printed over here. And let's go to the class. It says DrupalCamp Florida 2021 Composer and installer events. It is executing this function. So let's go to this file. So this is the namespace. And this is the function. It is simply, it does not have any business logic with it. It is simply printing a message which says event pre-operations executive has been fired. So yeah, that is what this script is doing. Now pre-package install. So this is the third event that we are going to talk about. And this is the type package event. Now this event will be fired, when we install or require any new package. So let me clear the CLI first. I'll say Composer require Drupal/devil. Okay, so we have required devil now, and let's see where this, what this class basically does. We'll go to package events first. This is doing nothing, but this is also printing a message which says event has been fired. So if you can see, before installing any package, it is, so this is let's say a package or dependency that was installed. And before this dependency was getting installed, this event was fired and we hooked into it and we printed our message. So we could have done any type of business logic also, but we are, for the sake of simplicity, I have just printed a message over here. So that's how you can use your pre-install CMD event, or also called as package events, that allow you to hook into Composer workflow or Composer lifecycle at the time of installing, updating any packages. Now, the fourth type is called as command. As you have already seen, like this particular event was getting called right at the start of any command. So this is the very first event that gets fired. If you can see, event command has been fired. This is the message, and this message is thrown by this class plugin events. So this is the file, and this is the class. See, this is the namespace where we have placed our class, and this is the callback function, and this is simply printing the argument or the message basically. The important point to note over here is that each type of event accepts a different argument. So whenever you try to hook into any type of event, you'll have to take care of the argument that you are supposed to pass to your callback functions. Yeah, pretty much that's it. One more thing to note over here is, so right before this particular session, in today evening itself, I updated my Composer from 1.1.10 to Composer 2.0, and I noticed that these events basically change from version to version. So last time I used Composer 1.10. At that time, we did not have this particular event. So this was new, and I found it first time today in Composer 2.0. So this is something you can pay attention to while you are upgrading your site from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9 as well. If you have written any Composer scripts, you should pay attention to your Composer events that you have written in your Drupal 8, let's say. or your older Drupal version, and you should see whether those events are available in Drupal 9 or not, based on the type of Composer version you are using. And let me see if one more thing over here. Since this is the composer.json file, this is nothing but the namespace. This is like I had to do 2 slashes over here. This is basically escaping. So I think pretty much that's it from the events. Let's go back to presentation. Okay. Now we saw what type of events are provided by Composer, what apart from types, what kind of or what events are present inside each type. Now we'll talk about writing our custom Composer commands and how you can execute them. We'll talk about like Composer. Basically Composer allows us to create certain commands, and from where, let's say, you can write PHP scripts, you can execute shell scripts, you can execute rush command, etc., etc. So yeah, that's it. We are going to talk about all these things via a demo today. So let's jump into the demo again. I'll exit out of this and let's go back to our editor. Let me clear it out. Just a moment. Okay. All right. So we saw these 4 events now. Now we are going to talk about how we can create our own scripts. The very first one that we are going to talk about is find code violations. This is a name of script that we have created. The script name is find code violations. If you saw the format earlier, the key and the value pair, it can be identified like your key is find code violations over here, and vendor bin PHPCS dot is basically the value or the command that you're going to fire during Composer's workflow. How these scripts are executed now. So that is the next part. You have to do Composer followed by your script name. So I'll copy this and I'll simply paste this. So Composer find code violations. As you can see, it scanned some directories. Now those directories I have defined already in this particular file, which is PHPCS.xml. We did not pay attention to, but all you need to know is it is taking care that Drupal coding standards are followed. So let me switch this or close this file. Let me show you a custom module that I have created, and I'll try to intentionally make a violation. I'll remove this empty line over here from the info.yml of my custom module, and I'll run Composer find code violations. So as you can see, it returned us an error that says expected 1 new line. So basically we executed or ran PHPCS on our repository using Composer scripts. So that is what this script was about. The next script is we are going to run PHPCBF, for which we have written a script called as fix code violations. This is the name of the script. And again, this is the command that is going to get executed by the Composer. Let's see if this fixes what the violation that we just made. So I'll say Composer fix code violations, and I'll say enter. So it is executing PHPCBF, and it says that it fixed the violation and there are no more violations. It is giving an error, and that is an expected outcome because this is an error code that signifies that the violations were fixed. Had it been 0, it could have mean that there is nothing to fix. And had it been 2, that is, we are talking about the error code here. If this had been 2, this would have mean like some violations have been fixed and some are not. So this is an expected outcome. I'll clear the CLI. Let's see if the info file, okay, in the info file, we have a new line now, which we removed earlier. Now, I have also written a shell script over here, and it is present as script shell directory, and this is the file name, and the script is called as shell-script. Let's go to this particular directory. I'll close every file, close others. Okay. Now, inside the shell directory, I have fldc 2021.sh. Now, what this script does, let's execute composer. So I'm executing the script that I have created in the composer. I'll say composer script, shell script, and let's see what it does. Okay, it says hello everyone from this particular line, and it says let's create file directory if it does not exist. Now, in our case, our file directory already existed, so I'll delete this. I'll say rm-rf, and that's it. Files directory is deleted. Now let's see if this script is successful in creating the files directory or not. I have executed. So we executed our custom composer script, and it basically created a files directory for us. So that's how you can execute shell scripts from your composers, custom composer scripts. Moving on, we can also execute PHP commands using composer scripts. For that, to demo that, I have created a script called as PHP-script, and it does, it basically executes this particular PHP file. And one thing to note over here is that to execute any kind of PHP file, you have to mention the this particular pattern, that is @PHP. This signifies that you are going to execute a PHP file. All right, let's see what this script contains. So I'll go to PHP directory, and it says fldc 2021.php. It is doing nothing but echoing or printing an output, a static string. So let's say composer PHP script. Okay, it says, it is showing that this script was executed by composer and it has printed this output. So yeah, that was about executing PHP scripts. Now, similarly, I have another PHP script which basically finds the version of PHP that I'm using. I'll copy this and I'll say composer space our script name and hit enter. It basically outputs the PHP version that we are using. Okay, while I am telling you about this, I have just forgotten one thing to tell you about while we were discussing events. So these event classes are not going to load automatically by composer. To do that, I have mapped our classes using this auto load feature, which is provided by composer. So if you can see, I have included every file over here, and each file is I used these files to demo you about the composer events. So I have included them over here. So yeah, that just came into my mind that I forgot to explain. Now, moving on, we saw the demo till this part. Now let's talk about this particular script. So far, we have seen how we can execute PHPCS, PHPCBF, a shell script, or execute any PHP files. Now we'll talk about executing drush commands and composer commands. The very first one that I have written is, it says build backend. Now what this script will do is, it will first execute drush-cr, and it is going to clear our site's cache, followed by composer install, followed by drush update database, and last one is drush config import. Important thing over here is that you can execute one composer command from an script using this particular keyword, that is @composer. This signifies that this script is going to execute the composer command. So let me clear the CLI. I'll say composer build backend. Let's hit enter. So okay, the first one is executed. It says trust CR. Cache rebuild was complete, and our composer install is getting executed, followed by drush update database, and last one was drush config import. And yeah, that's how you can execute your drush commands or composer commands using composer scripts. I'll say clear now. So that script was successful in executing. Now I have written a test backend script. What this does is it basically executes a PHPUnit test, which is present inside my custom module, and the module name is FLDC 2021. And yeah, so this is like executing a test. Let's see what this file does. I'll go to this particular module and I'll go to src existing site, just another test.php. Now this test is basically checking, it is loading the module handler service in the container, and it is checking if the node module is enabled or not. So I'll go to the composer script again, and I'll hit composer test backend. So that is the name of our script. So the PHPUnit test was executed. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's how you can execute PHPUnit test using composer scripts. The next one on the line is build front end. So this is another script which I have created. And what this script does is it basically changes the directory to our custom theme. Now this custom theme is present at just a moment, themes directory, custom, FLDC 2021 UI. Now it changes the directory and it executes npm install. Let's see that. I'll say composer build front end and hit enter. Okay, it executed that, and yeah, it ran npm install. So that was about build front end script. The last one on the line is deploy and test. Now this is a script which is going to demonstrate you a feature, a sub feature of composer scripting, and it is called as script referencing. Now you can reference your existing scripts in the composer script sections using this @ character followed by the script name that is present inside your scripts array. So what I am doing over here is I have created deploy and test script. It in turn executes your build backend script followed by test backend and followed by the build front end. So what I'll do is I'll clear this and I'll say composer deploy and test. Now trust CR, that was the very first part of build backend followed by composer install. Okay, followed by drush updb. And it says trust CIM. So the build backend is complete. Now the PHPUnit test was executing, followed by this front end script execution. So that's how you can, reference your existing scripts inside any other composer script using this @ keyword. And yeah, that was all about composer scripts. I'll close this. Okay, before closing this, let me zoom out a bit. Now, let's talk about an different array that you can add to your composer.json file. This is basically like adding or defining what your scripts are about. Now, we have created all these scripts. We saw the demo of all these scripts that we have defined in the scripts array. And for example, this is the key, find code violations, and this is the description of this particular script. It says it runs PHPCS to find the code violations, etc. So these are all the descriptions basically. And now where you can find them or how this is useful. I'll open the CLI again. I'll clear this. Now you can find these descriptions when any user does composer space list. I'll hit enter. Okay, now all the scripts that we created are somewhere around in this array, but okay, it will be difficult to read. Let me do composer list by grep followed by FLDC 2021. Okay, now this has filtered out all our scripts that we just created. And yeah, that's it. I mean, that is what these script descriptions do. And let me see if I have to cover up anything else over here. I think pretty much that's it. I'll move to the presentation. Now, actually, the time is for questions. So I'll come to the Zoom chat. Before that, I mean, this is how, we created, I mean, I learned about these scripts. You can create, as a developer, you can create various scripts inside your Composer JSON and maybe share with your, let's say the DevOps team. You can, using these, the scripts, you can communicate with your this DevOps team in a single language, that is Composer. You can provide them various deploy commands to your DevOps team that does or builds backend, front end, or also executes your PHPUnit test cases. So yeah, I'll come to the questions now.
Thank you, Kunal. You have some questions in the chat if you want to watch those.
So the very first one is from Steve. It says he has also used these composer commands and scripts at va.gov, and they find it pretty useful, to share the scripts across different environments. So it's great to hear that. This next one is from Peter. It says, in sum, would this be considered a CI/CD process? I would say, yeah. In terms of like integrating in with your CI, you can create, as I said, you can create multiple scripts and you can share all those commands with your DevOps team. And basically, it's a collaboration task over here. And you are going to communicate with them in terms of Composer itself. Otherwise, you have to like communicate with them in terms of executing drush commands, executing maybe some shell scripts, etc. So this basically simplifies that aspect over here. So you talk only in terms of composer scripts. Next one is from Levy, and it says, this was helpful. Thank you for sharing. I've seen similar approaches using scripting in Lando, but I really liked it. I'm glad you liked it. And yeah, I mean, this was also pretty interesting for me when I first learned it. So I'm happy to share about it.
Hey, Kunal, Sushil here. I had a question.
Yes, Sushil.
It has two folds. So is it, so we learned about commands and events, right? So is it fair to say that the events are predefined commands?
I would say events are predefined scripts. Basically, they are events that are fired by Composer during its life cycle. Since they are automatically executed, you can say, yeah, they are like commands automatically executed by Composer during its workflow. But technically, those are events. I mean, that's what Composer calls them.
Right, right. So my second question would be, is it possible to call the commands directly instead of putting it inside scripts, customly defined classes, uh, if you defined a command, and can we call it inside events directly? Is there
I
a way to
think
do it?
so. I have not tried that. Let me share the screen and try it right away.
That
Okay.
would be awesome. Thanks.
I think it would work normal, but I'm not sure. I have cleared the CLI. Let's say we want to call this post install CMD. I'll say Composer post install CMD over here. And it says post install C.
No, so I meant, so if I want to call like, you know, there are some scripts we created, custom scripts. Can we call it on one of the events? Yeah, find code violations on,
Over,
let's say, yeah, post
so
install.
okay, I'll take the easy one. Let's say get PHP version. What you're asking is, when I run Composer install, can we add our script over here?
Yeah.
I think that's what you meant.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So we'll use script referencing over here. And let me run. Before that, what I tried earlier, let me try one more thing. I'll say Composer run script followed by this and enter. Okay, so both things happen now. One thing I think this just clicked in my head is, yes, we can execute events as well from your CLI. But one additional thing I did over here is I added this particular text which says run script. Now, technically, when you are running Composer scripts, the documentation says that you have to execute scripts as like this: Composer run script followed by script name. But what I was doing was I was doing Composer followed by the script name. So that is the short form.
Right.
But yeah, when I had to like do or call this particular event script, that is basically called by Composer automatically. I did this particular command and it worked. And Sushil, that's the another thing that you asked was, can we reference our scripts over here? So yeah, as you
Right. So
can see
can
over
we
here.
just run Composer install?
Yeah, I'll do that. Composer install. And yes, the scripts executes.
Awesome.
So
thank you so much. That cleared up.
okay. Yeah. I'll come back to Zoom chat once again. I think I'll have to stop this screen share. So Levi is asking if this example publicly available. So yeah, I think I am going back and forth again and again. What I'll do is I'll screen share, and so over here, I mean, I have created these two links over here. I mean, the first one is GitHub repository. That contains the complete site that I have used today, including the database as well, followed by the slides that we have used today. So let me just paste it in the chat for you. Okay, it's code repo.
And Kunal, if you could upload your slides to, if you go back to the Drupal camp site and then sign into your session that you originally submitted, you should be able to upload like a PDF version of the slides. That'd be very useful.
Okay.
When you have a second, it doesn't have to be right now. Just when you have a second.
All right. So yeah, I have shared the links on the chat. Oh, I could access chat from here. I was not aware that I can look at it without doing the stopping of screen share.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. This is a very informative presentation. I'm not a developer like this, but I learned a lot. So thank you.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, thank you.
And so one last thing that I want to say over here is, thank you to the Drupal camp Florida organizers. This is the first time that I am presenting or attending at this camp. I'm sad that I could not attend it publicly, but yeah, I'm glad that I have joined it online and was able to present to all of you. And one more thing, the other town is awesome, but yeah, I'm looking forward to have my alligator selfie right after this call, because so far has been pretty crowded.
Well, thank you again. Thank you everyone for coming, and Kunal, feel free to drop off whenever you're ready. I'll just take over the room from here, so you're good.
Okay. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.